You're unmuted.
The key is this. If
No more
you
chit
have
chat in
any
there.
vouchers, you get rid of that.
Tough drugs are here if you need them.
It's
love
just
them.
part of
Okay,
the-
thank
Or if you're filling in for somebody else.
Right,
Your phone, that's
if they've asked you to.
if they asked you to, yes.
I purposely don't ask.
I don't see our guys from network.
There's people.
They said they'd be here by 2.
By 2, we'll be long gone.
I'll say no more. I'm
You hope.
gonna do my own homework.
Okay.
Let Evan run this. Yeah.
You know,
He's right.
We're done.
Call to order.
Well, I think we're probably gonna spend about an hour and a half on the trial balance, so. Lock in, baby,
I've got a tea time, Art.
like I care.
I was gonna bring you with me.
Nobody
What time is
cares.
It's 1:30. Call this meeting to order, Benton County Board of Commissioners. This is the study session. Today is April 9th, 2024. We're in the Frank Walter House Boardroom. Roll call.
Cunningham,
Here.
not.
Here.
Markey is excused.
Are you standing?
Nye,
I'm here.
Roloffs.
Here.
Sauer,
Here.
Worsakki.
I'm here.
Okay.
Please stand. Oh, boy, it's gonna be fun. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
Following Art's lead.
Okay.
Like at church, if you're not sure, somebody else stands up.
Must be time.
Righty.
Any changes, additions to the agenda?
Right after HR update, Rose is gonna give a little bit of an update too, but you don't have to change the agenda.
Rose is like, I'm what?
There are no additions, deletions?
Oh, I'll make a motion to
So,
accept.
thank you.
Sorry.
Second.
Motion and support, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so moved. Minutes from March 12th, 2024.
Move that we approve the minutes from March 12th.
Board.
Motion and support, further discussion? Roll call. Sorry, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. I said it so many times this morning. Brings us to our first public comment. Anybody like to share? Close public comment and brings us to HR.
Moving right along.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
There is a couple of things I wanted to go over on the HR update that I handed out. The newest is we do have a new dispatcher that started last month, Francis Simone. We have another new dispatcher starting on May 6th. I like to announce their name after they officially start, so I'll be bringing that to next month. We have one employee on a medical leave. The lower level gym is currently open and I've received multiple waivers. People have been following that. So I'm very happy about that to say I have multiple waivers on file, so it's great. The biggest thing I wanted to highlight is the EAP meeting. That is tomorrow. Encompass will be on site. We have our first meeting from 12 to 12:30 here in the Board of Commission chambers. Then we have 2 additional meetings, one from 4:30 to 5 up at the EOC training room. And then we have another one from 8 to 8:30 PM. Also in the EOC training room. I strongly encourage you guys to attend that. It's a benefit for you, but I also think it shows support to our employees as well. And I think it's a great program. We've had really positive feedback about it. Employees have already been reaching out about it. I'm very encouraged. And the Encompass people have been lovely to work with so far. So I'm looking forward to meeting them in person tomorrow.
12 to 12:30 tomorrow.
12 to 12:30 in here. Yep, so 12 to 12:30 here. 4:30 to 5 up at the EOC training, and then also from 8 to 8:30 PM tomorrow evening.
Evan, that means you can attend.
8:30?
Eight
My
to-
bedtime. I could maybe make the 5 o'clock.
No, 4:30 to 5, 4:30 to 5.
Yeah, I can make that one. Yeah.
I also wanted to talk a little bit about the HR visits. I was lucky enough to be able to squeeze a lot in during the spring break week, also the week that we didn't have a commission meeting. And I got to visit multiple different departments during this time, or over the past month. It was equalization, the sheriff's office, corrections. I got to work with the jail administrative assistant, district court, as well as animal control. And it's one thing to see the job descriptions. It's another thing to actually be there. And our employees are so excited to just show you what they do. And if any of you commissioners get the opportunity to do something similar, I strongly encourage it. It was one of the things that employees mentioned is they just said, I wish the commissioners could see what we do as well. So it's been a really great experience for me, and I'm very happy that I have had the privilege of doing that. That's the update I really have so far. Did you have any questions?
Jackie, just because you brought it up, these visits that you do to the departments, I'm assuming you're talking primarily to the staff, not just department heads, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I typically book the visit with the department head, and then I get to work directly with different staff members. So yes, correct.
And who do you share that information, good or bad? Who do you share that with?
Oftentimes the department head will ask me how it went, and I have no bad experience whatsoever. It's always been positive. People have always been happy to have me there, and it's really bridged the gap to be able to make people more comfortable coming to me with questions. And oftentimes I get questions when I'm there, HR related or just Benzie County in general, and it's been a great experience.
And what's your position on doing annual performance evaluations on non-union employees?
Well, I think there's always a benefit to learn what you're doing well and what you could work on. And I don't see as in a negative way. And oftentimes employees have asked about that type of review. So I don't think it would be ill received.
Thank you.
What else?
What is Francis's last name again?
Simone,
Simone.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
I am saying that right. I asked her how to say it.
Good for you.
Yeah. All right, so I hope to see all of you tomorrow, again, for that EAP rollout, 12 to 12:30, 4:30 to 5, and 8 to 8:30. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So 2 of the trainings are up there.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Hello.
I just want to give you guys an update. I've been working on some projects and one was completed from the capital plan, which was the signs. So if you actually can kind of see it out the window, you guys have a new sign and we also have wayfinding signs. And then the sheriff also has some lettering on his building. I would like to reach out to let you guys know if you guys have any problems with them or if you guys see something that is wrong with them, please let me know so I can reach out to our vendor because they've asked, like, do you guys have any problems or is anything going on with them? To just kind of let me know so I can reach out to them so they can fix it. So if you guys have noticed anything so far right now, you guys can let me know or you guys can come see me after the meeting or whatnot.
Are any of them lit?
Nope, only the sheriff's
sheriff.
office one is lit.
We did talk about that at the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Because obviously there's a cost difference in lighting and not lighting. And it kind of boiled down to this is not really a safe haven 24 hours. The sheriff's office is. So it very much makes sense to have them lit because if somebody is in need, they're going to need to find the sheriff's office. They come here and the lights are out. So it didn't make sense to spend that large extra sum of money to light our sign when nobody's here after 5 o'clock anyways. So that's kind of where how the decision landed to not light it.
And we spent a good deal of time last year even talking about that.
Yeah.
After having been gone from the community for several days, that was one of the first things I noticed coming back into town was this new sign.
Isn't it beautiful?
And I realized that we want to be conservative about the monies that we spend. But if your facilities don't look like they're upkept, that's a whole image of our community. And immediately it had an impact, and I wasn't even looking for it, but it caught my attention just like that.
Yeah, so the sheriff's office is also identified. So if you drive around the campus, you know how at the front of ours it says Government Center. theirs now says the sheriff's office now to identifies the building too, which is huge.
Yep, perfect. Great
Yep.
job.
Thank you. And then the only other projects that so far we're working on is a parking lot, the concrete sidewalk project, and the register of deeds remodel with the prosecutors. And so if you guys know anyone who would like to bid those projects, please
Send them
send
our
them
way.
to our office. It would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Are we having any luck coming up with a list of contractors?
I think we've had one or two asked to be added to a list.
Yep. There's a couple, and then I do post on, there's a page for Michigan, and that reaches everyone in Michigan, so I've been posting there. But right now, it's just the time of year, everyone's super busy and trying to
When
figure
they
out
get
what
hungry, they'll
projects.
come.
Basically, and then a timing, if we wait until the middle of summer to go out for bid, they say that might work a little bit better too.
Everybody's pretty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Rose, I did see the signs.
I noticed it too, coming into town.
Pointed out, it's so beautiful. How would you miss it?
Well, I wasn't looking for it. I just assumed that we were okay.
Item number 8, topics for continued discussion, review of the trial balance.
Number A, perfect. So in your packet was a trial balance. That trial balance is as of March 31st, because that was the close of the month. I did hand out to you just a minute before our meeting an updated single page, which is the 401, and that's ending April 30th. I handed that out because the trial balance from March 31st looked a little scary to me because there was some error in bookkeeping. And so Rose and I are working to fix some of those errors in bookkeeping, but we are dependent upon another department to make those changes. So I handed out a single sheet that looks a little better because it was embarrassing to see the way the one looked. And again, that's out of our control at this point. So looking at the trial balance, we have this on the agenda just to kind of give it a deep dive and look at it closely. So if there's any questions or anything, we can talk through those. We are about 50% through the fiscal year. I guess we are 50% through the fiscal year. So when you're looking at the final column on the far right of each page, it's going to show the percentage of budget used. And so anything right around that 50% mark and below, we're right in line with. Some are above that 50%, and almost every single one of them can be explained. So when it comes to revenue, if it's over the 50% or even over the 100%, that just means that we've collected more than we budgeted. So those revenue lines, which are typically at the beginning, so anything up until that 700 in the last 3 sets of numbers, those are revenue lines. So just to reiterate, the first set of 3 numbers is your fund. So 101 fund. The second set of 3 numbers, that's your department. So the clerk's office, administrator, and so forth. The third set of numbers and the last 2 set of numbers, those are your accounts. So when you're looking at this, you will see that the various different departments all have the same accounts. So when you see contracted services or office supplies multiple times, every department has their own line for those items. The way the chart of accounts is, this is how the state tax commission prescribes that you break out your budget. So as you recall, we went through that huge chart of accounts change last summer. And so that changed a lot of things. It did end up shortening our overall budget as far as lines go. So we did end up getting rid of, I want to say 2.5 pages of lines, believe it or not. So it did clean up a lot of things, but it also added a lot of things as well. So you'll recall prior fiscal years, and if you look at old budgets, you'll see one medical for the whole general fund. That's everybody in the general fund coming out of one line. Well, now it's broke out by department. Same with retirement and those other sorts of benefits. That was a requirement with the change of the chart of accounts. And so whereas before we had one line for those things and it was, almost a bit easier to budget, now it's broke out by every single department. So it's a little bit more cumbersome to the eye when you're looking at some of those things. So you'll notice that change. I am really here for questions when it comes to this trial balance. If there's things that look wonky, I will focus in on the 401 unless there's questions on other funds before we get to there. The 101, when you look at the bottom line, it does look like we're using a lot of fund balance to balance the budget. That's based on the cash at hand. So we haven't collected the taxes yet. And so you'll notice on the 101,253 for the taxes, it's showing, nothing essentially. And that's because we haven't settled everything in the system. And so it shows we've collected 0 taxes for the general fund. But in reality, it's a bookkeeping. We have to, finalize that bookkeeping and post everything accordingly to the general fund. So, that bottom number will look quite different once all that posting and stuff is done. As Kelly talked about this morning, we've just went through settlement and such. So now those numbers will begin to be posted in appropriate areas and clean up a few things, from there. So, our next time we go through this in a few months, things will look a lot different because of that reason primarily. Is there any questions on anything?
So I've got some questions, but I don't want to jump ahead of anybody. If others have questions, please jump in.
Wanted to ask her about the interest. Seems like everything we're collecting on refunds and rebates are really on the high side. Is that seem a little unusual, or is it time of year?
Well, which department are you talking about? 101.
101,253,665 is the interest on deposits.
Yep.
And I'm thinking we budgeted 100,000 and we've collected 144 already.
Yeah.
So that's just from Michigan class and those kind of things.
Michigan class is one, but there's others. Yes. So interest
That's been good.
is great right now. I mean, even your rate of return of some of your retirements are over 20%. So we're very lucky in that sense that this given amount of time, that one is so high.
It's sustainable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important to look at that because that's a pretty good chunk of change, to be honest. It'll give us an opportunity to do maybe a couple other things. And what the other one was, the marijuana one was
Yeah, that's-
200% over or something.
Where are we at?
I can't remember where that was. I saw it.
101,253. So
439.
for the recreational marijuana excise tax,
Yeah,
That's right.
so that one's at 112%. So we had budgeted 210, and that was actually the number we were given by the state. So the state puts out every year, this is how much everybody's getting. And then they ended up sending us more, and they sent us a notice that said, hey, you're getting more because sales are up, and it's a calculation. So that was one of
People are
those.
Smoking weed.
We were told it was gonna be the 210, but then just a couple of months ago, they're like, hey, never mind, it's gonna be this much now. And so we did get extra there, and that was surprise to us.
okay. So I'm not complaining. I'm just,
Yeah. No, I understand.
Just discern. Yeah.
yeah, figure out. And Evan said it was that one homeless guy in Traverse, but that was.
God bless.
And that may be less next year, just because one of our businesses has,
Yeah, so that's paid to us in arrears.
based on.
Yeah.
right, It's
Oh,
based
okay.
on the 4 dispensaries in Benzonia Township. And with one having gone out of business, that amount will probably be less next year.
Correct. Yes.
Oh.
So we should get that number here in the next couple of months. The state starts telling us numbers here soon. So we'll have an idea of what that number is going to be here fairly soon. Yeah.
Did we have one that open up in the last few months?
Well, one was, Lake and, is it Lake and?
Leaf and Lakes.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
And then there's weed.
Yeah, weed.
Right down here.
There's one called
Yeah.
Weeds.
Under a
Very
different.
Yeah,
creative.
real,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I'm.
So they went, so there
Oh,
was a
that's
certain
what
period
that
of
was.
time, and I
Okay.
don't know how they factor that into their equation.
Very
They're up and
creative.
running Right now,
So there's still only 3
Oh,
dispensaries
you want- yeah.
correct,
versus 4 the prior year.
yes.
I gotta go, all the good things, Art. Go ahead and hammer.
I do want to comment on the interest.
Yeah.
That interest income, is that a combination of funds that we have invested for other groups, for instance, EMS, and
So
animal control?
no, so things that are specific stay within their funds. So if
Okay.
it can go to the general fund, it does. But if there are specific funds that are special millages, road commission, such as that, those stay within their funds. And so you'll recall, we sent out a spreadsheet a month or so ago, and we'll continue to send that spreadsheet out to you, Kelly, and I agree that's good information for you to have. And in there will tell you, in that spreadsheet, it specifically tells you which fund is gaining the interest and where it goes. And so that would help you break out as to what's going where.
Okay.
Yeah,
That lump that you looked at was all in the general fund, right?
this one here,
Yeah.
this is general fund specifically,
Okay.
right here on page 2. Yep.
Right, thank you.
My concern is that I'd heard some comments that in the month of November, we got $60,000 in interest income just in that month. And then we annualize that. You got to be careful about doing that. It has to do with balances, and
Mm.
I think that we projected about 5% return, and we're probably getting closer to 5.5. So all those things that we've benefited from, rates will come down.
Correct.
So, that's you need to anticipate that.
Well, that's a very important note. So when you're looking at that spreadsheet, you gotta look at the last couple of years and where we were, where we went, and where we're going. Because while it looks like we've gotten gobs of interest in this last year and a half, the 2 years before that, we were in the holes tremendously. And so you gotta kind of look at all the numbers and see truly where we're at. Did we come out of that hole, and how far did we come out of that hole in interest?
You went from 0.5 to 5.
Right. So
Again,
we are ahead in the grand scheme of it.
but as you're going into budgeting for next year, don't anticipate those rates to stay. Could I ask a couple questions on expenses? And just full disclosure, Katie and I have had this conversation. I don't like to blindside people unless they deserve it.
Only me.
And of course you wouldn't, now I had glasses when I was talking to you before, but, 172,725,07 contracted services, I think is what I'm looking at.
So
Wait, I may have I gave you the wrong number, but it is contracted services.
172,800 is
Thank you.
contracted services. So
you.
this looks like we've used a tremendous amount of the budget, partially because it's broadband related. And so we have the money that we had set aside for Mitch Shapiro and the other, Grow Benzie and those other folks. And then we have the money that we had set aside specifically for paying Cherry Capital for the project. And so this has been used a great deal and changed a great deal to account for Cherry Capital. So we allocated so much out of ARPA and then so much out of other funds. And so this is that last payment came from our contracted services because that was the last couple of payments were coming out of the general fund. So it made sense to put it in our contracted services because we've been helping with that project. So we've used a great deal of that budget because we're nearing the end of those payments. I think we have one more left and we're done paying. Everything left, those contracted services are much smaller. It's Mitch Shapiro, it's John Wilson, which are, $1,000, a couple $1,000. So they're a lot smaller. So we've used a great deal of that budget because they were large payments coming. Now we're nearing the end of those large payments and they're going to be little payments from here on out. Does that make sense?
So 71% is nothing to worry about then? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
There's no other large payments going to be coming from there.
I mean, yes, but it should cause you to ask the question.
Yeah, ask the question, but it'll equal out.
What I look for is larger dollar amounts, and are you more than 10% of what you should be for your budget? So I'm going to turn you then to, and by the way, my questions only are related to the general fund,
Correct. Yep.
right? 228-963-00, computer support.
I'm just gonna go. All right, so computer support. So this is a few different things. So one, we did change vendors. And that so that made a difference. And as you know, that vendor was a little higher than the previous vendor, dependent upon grants. So we are waiting on some grant dollars. We were approved for the different grants that they had committed to applying for us. But we've already made those payments. Now we're gonna bring back the grant dollars in. So as you know, cash and budget is different. And so what you budget doesn't necessarily mean the cash that you have. And so, even though it should, so we had to budget to pay all these things. And then when the cash comes back, it won't lower what the budget is because you still made those transactions. You still have to account for those transactions. So the budget looks higher, but the cash will be coming in from those grants for that. So a lot of this is because we changed vendors and we paid those big costs right at the beginning to pay for that new vendor for cybersecurity and the retainer for cybersecurity and things like that. So that really is the biggest piece of the reason of why that one looks so different. And then when we did approve that new vendor, we talked about other funding that was for contingency to make up any difference if there was. So if we didn't get the grants and stuff like that. We also have been working really hard to secure our network. And so we've had, new firewalls and some other things that we've implemented as part of computer support that we've had to fund as well.
If I could, the next line item would be 257,717.02 HRA reimbursements. It looks like we just blown the budget on that.
Sure. So HRA reimbursement is a bit of a conundrum when budgeting. So it's unrealistic to budget the maximum we'd pay on every single person's behalf every year because we'd be taking away that revenue from everybody else. We don't know how. So when we budget HRA reimbursement, we budget it based on a methodology, a percentage of the total, because budgeting the total isn't realistic. But we have to budget something. And so in this particular instant, we budgeted a number that we felt comfortable. That's kind of an average number recommended by our benefits agent as to what's a safe number based on our HRA amount. And it just so happens that in this department, we've had folks who have had to utilize that benefit more than others. And so that they've had more reimbursement on their behalves versus other departments who haven't had to utilize that benefit. So that one, unfortunately, you'll never be exact on that one.
It's not a big dollar amount, so it's not really a budget buster, but
No. And if you look at other departments within the general fund, there'll be many of them where the HRA is we've paid almost nothing. And then you have some where it's just blown the budget. And again, it's the healthiness of your staff.
Also
Okay.
depends on what gets used
Mm-hmm.
and probably as bad as anybody. 2 brand new titanium hips, I ought to get something out of that, right?
I haven't had anybody write me a check yet, but
Well, they never go to me, it goes to
oh,
That
okay.
wife.
that guy with the knife.
The next one is 750.00 maintenance supplies. You're at 80% budget.
All right, so this one, so as you recall, we, as you recall, we now do a cost allocation for the general fund, and the sheriff's office building. And so we had one cost allocation. We determined a new cost allocation based on the expansion. We've also had, some unexpected additional items we've had to purchase. And so, that is why that one is towards the top, is because the allocation has changed. We are obviously keeping an eye on that, and if it gets close, we'll have to adjust other lines that are much below the threshold to make up for that difference. But a lot of that is because of the new allocation. Before it was just the sheriff's office. Well, now we have other general fund departments within that base or lower level too, so that makes a difference, as well as the gym space and things like that.
296,955.00 dues and registrations. You're at 92%.
Let me find it. 296.
So it's not, I understand that it's not a big budget item, but I can't imagine we won't have other expenses before the year's out.
Let me pull up the detail.
Almost done, folks.
No, that's fine. So this is this is typically dues and registrations are professional associations and affiliations of the different departments. So this department specifically is the prosecuting attorney's office. And these were for annual dues and license registrations. So there really shouldn't be anything else coming out of that because staff pretty well knows what affiliations they're going to have. So when we do those budgets, we can plan accordingly. So they've already paid their annual dues for both of their affiliations. And so we shouldn't be paying anything else out of there unless it's a new affiliation.
So you have reason to believe we'll stay within budget.
We should, yeah.
301-800.00 contracted services again.
So
You're at 73%.
So this is specific to the sheriff's office. So as I noted, that second set is the department. So this is specific to the sheriff's office. And they too, in this, there's annual payments that have been made. So when we make an annual payment, it makes that budget look like it's super out of whack, but then obviously there's no payments coming the rest of that year. And so when I'm looking in here at the detail, there's quite a few annual, and then there's also a quarterly payments as well. So that would cause it to look more than 50% because we've paid multiple in here of annual payments that won't be coming out again until next fiscal.
426-967.00 project expenses. You're 700% over.
So this one is my fault. So we have been paying the mass notification or code red from the 425. Originally, it was set up in the 425 fund. I don't know the reasoning behind that. It really should have been coming out of the general fund, out of emergency management's department. So we made that move and the funding is available. We just have to fix the budget because we made that change mid fiscal year. So you will have a budget amendment coming for you to recognize the revenue and recognize the expenditure to fix that. And then it won't be 714% over budget. Yeah.
That's all I have. I do want to acknowledge, though, the quality of this presentation, the way that we're doing our budgeting and reporting. I think that's very responsible. I think you guys are doing a good job.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from anyone regarding the 101 or any other funds? And then I'm going to go into just a little detail regarding the 401. Okay. So the 401, if you take a glance at the one I passed out right before the meeting, it does look a little scary for the fact that it shows that we're in the hole cash wise. Well, that's just because it hasn't been moved. So as a common practice, as a good practice in the treasurer's office, we hold funds in higher interest bearing accounts, and then we pull it over as necessary. As you know, we've had a lot of transition in the treasurer's office and things that are getting caught up on. And so this is one of those things that's still being caught up on to fix this specific account. So that's why it looks a little scary. If you look back at the budget, and I printed out my notes from the budget, the transfers in have not been performed yet. So of course the cash is looking low because the transfers in have not been performed yet. So that really is the biggest piece of it, is there's no, so if you look at the transfer in just for the 401,000, we're supposed to transfer in 160. We haven't transferred in anything yet. So of course that's not there to balance it out. And then there's the DHS rent. They haven't paid us yet, but that is coming. Transfer in for the EOCs, so for the lower level, it's only 400,000 has been transferred in from the DTRF, but the other transfers in from the other funds that were approved by this body haven't been made yet. So it's mostly a bookkeeping issue. We're just catching up on that in the treasurer's office. But we're kind of letting them get in the grain of things before I come back to them with more paper and say, hey. So those will clear up here very soon once we get all the paperwork into the system specifically. Now I want to call your attention to the bottom line, and it's 401-903-967 project expenses ARPA. So ARPA has been in its own designated account now for since we received it, because we had it in so we could keep it called out for the reporting and such. So it was in the 286 account. So what we have done is we've recognized that revenue in this last audit, and this morning you received the audit on your desk and you saw 2. So you had your normal audit, and then the fin one was a single audit. And so as you recall, with the ARPA dollars, if you spent $750,000 or more, you were subject to a single audit. Well, we did. And so to avoid an additional single audit, which costs quite a bit extra money, we went ahead and recognized all that money into the general fund this year. So we had one single audit. We won't have another single audit next year. And so that money will then move into the 401. It's still ARPA dollars, and we're notating it as ARPA dollars, but we're putting it within the capital fund because we've been spending it on capital items. That's what it was set aside for, was capital items. So it'll have its own line in the 401 now versus having its own fund, the 286 fund. That fund will go away. And we did that really so we don't have another single audit, and it just cleans things up in the bookkeeping just to get it out of the way like that. And so that's why you see that right there. And it shows all zeros. We just did this in the last week or so. And so there'll be a large budget amendment coming to you guys to make those lines not zeros, because we'll then be recognizing that into that fund. And so that's why you'll see too, if you're looking into the normal project expenses of the general fund, it looks like 88% used. Some of that is actually attributable to the ARPA dollars. But we're in this flux of moving and budget amending and such. We had to pay the bill, but we're going to have to journal entry and correct that transaction to the ARPA line once we finish those other pieces on the back end. But like I said, we're literally just doing this week, and I emailed our auditor yesterday on one more question before we make any moves. And so that is why you'll see that it's at 88%, that some of that's going to move down to that ARPA line.
Anything that you're doing, does that cause an exception on the audit?
Everything I'm doing is at the recommendation of the auditors. They recommend doing it this way. This is how other municipalities are doing to clean it up.
Do they put that then in their overview or summary?
I didn't read it in there. No, they did not call it out specifically. No.
Okay.
Mm.
And about the capital budget, you provided that to us also at the trial balance.
I sure did. So if you go, there's only 2 spreadsheets. I did not provide the vehicle spreadsheet just because that one's a bit wonky and we're still working on updating mileage and different things on that spreadsheet. So what's in here is your typical capital sheet that you guys are used to seeing every year. And then there's the ARPA one too that we had talked about when we allocated the 30%. I tried to add some notes on the sides there to help answer any questions you all may have regarding the 2 different spreadsheets. And so hopefully that's helpful. You'll see on the ARPA list, there's various that are completed or out to bid. So we're doing really well from that standpoint. And so if there's any questions on those, please let me know. Tim Markey is going to help me. He is much more skilled in Excel than I am. And so he's going to help me tweak this spreadsheet. Because what I really want to show you guys, and you're not seeing it on this spreadsheet because we're removing columns every year. I want to show you that we've been saving for things. And so, for instance, for the rooftop units, we budgeted 1 last year, 1 this year. We didn't do 1 last year. So here it looks like we only budgeted 1, but really within that fund balance is earmarked that much money for the second one. And so he's going to help me tweak this spreadsheet so that we can show how much we're saving each year, but how much in totality we've saved for that project. So it shows you the full picture of the things we're doing, because good business is we're planning for these things. And so I want to be able to show that in numbers sake. And so he's going to help us because he's very skilled in Excel.
The big question is are we going to be within budget at the end of the year?
Mm-hmm.
In those items.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So far, we've really come under on most of them. There's, I do think there was one that we were over, but it was almost by nothing. But we've been coming in under budget or right at budget for almost all these things.
To make your budget high enough, you can do that.
Exactly.
I do have a question on DHHS's rent. Ridiculous. They only pay it once a year? Is that what I'm hearing?
So they've done both, actually. I don't see anything here, which tells me they haven't paid yet this year. So when I first came, it was noticeable they were paying monthly. But I haven't seen anything, but I do know the state is very, very behind in payments. Because even for juvenile court, for the child care fund, we seek reimbursement. We're behind back until August of last year. They haven't paid us. So the state is very behind in making its payments. So this doesn't surprise me. My guess is this is on the list of things they're behind in.
I think when this was bonded, this building, were paid on a monthly basis.
Mm.
Maybe wrong, but really thought we were. I'm a little,
Well, I think we were back then,
Mhm.
yeah,
but when that contract ran out, they
Things changed.
told us what they would pay going forward,
still,
because they primarily paid for this.
Apparently how they
Right.
would pay too.
Yeah, so, and we just had to provide a great deal of information to the HHS to determine the new rents, because as you may know, the contract notes, we give them information and they tell us what they're going to pay us. Which I find very
you
interesting.
did get the letter written that at the end of 5 years, pack your crap and go.
So I gave them a glimpse of that and said, be prepared.
Be challenged on a reasonable square footage comparison.
I tried. So
Standardized rents. I mean, everybody looks at.
I tried. So you know how every year we do the cost allocation plan to determine the administrative fees and other things? I pushed and tried to provide them that document because that's the true picture. I mean, they do that analysis for us to show the true picture. And I went back and forth and I was basically told to pound sand and provide the information they asked for, and they will tell me how much they will pay me. So I complied and we provided the information and I
I'd love,
tried.
I'd love to be getting more than 25,000 a year, whatever they're paying us.
20
Something.
grand,
20 grand.
20 grand,
-ish.
but
$1,600 a month.
let's be fair about this. For several years, they paid a premium. And that's why they were able to dictate the terms of this lease. That premium paid for the bond.
I'll give you that to a certain point, but the original agreement, if they would have stuck with that, instead of increasing it, at slight amount, because they didn't increase it that much,
Mm-mm.
we'd have been farther ahead. We were still making better. They would have made the bond payments. Maybe not in totality, but down the road, these last 10 years would have been a lot easier on us.
Mhm.
Gary, I back what you're saying 100%. And going forward, when we get in these situations, hopefully we've learned.
Right, and I just go back by the the original contract. We'd have stuck with that, we'd have been in.
Yeah. So, we provided them everything, as far as what they wanted. Like I said, I did try to give them that cost allocation plan that we pay to have done. And I was told to pound sand. I took it up the ladder, and then that person told me to pound sand and provide the information that is what's spelled out in the contract and that they will determine. So I did try that, and I sent them the federal code and was like, this is what this means, and this is for, they use this for child support, and nope.
Out of curiosity, are they utilizing all the space they?
There's 3 to 5 people down there at any given time, if that.
Most of them are working from
What's the
home,
square
if I'm
footage?
not mistaken, yeah.
Do you remember what it was in the agreement? It was like 17,000 square feet-ish. Somewhere around that 17,000 square foot-ish.
5 people.
And we pay all the utilities. I mean, they don't, the only thing that they pay for is their own cleaning, because they have to background and do certain things for their cleaning people. So they have their own cleaning service, but outside of that, they utilize, yeah,
Well, in addition to square footage, they got a prime spot.
it is prime. They also have the good break space. They have a full kitchen in the break space. We have a cheap couch I bought on Amazon for our staff, which is better than they had. But I mean, it's unfortunate.
They have one more 5-year re-up. is that
Correct.
Right?
Yep. So
They're in that-
2029.
They're in that last 5 years, aren't they?
It starts this fall.
This fall,
Yeah.
okay.
And it's so 2029, the mid to late 2029, they'll be done if the board at that time desires that. if the board at that time doesn't desire them leaving and I'm still here, I will advocate for a much higher rent, obviously.
Oh, yeah, we'll go.
Or
for work.
alternative use. I mean.
Something, if they could shrink their footprint even, would be cool. I mean, we have so many departments that are in closets. It'd be nice to make those closets break rooms and storage rooms instead and give our staff better area to be in.
You're much more versed in the childcare rules in and outs. Is that prime space for some sort of childcare facility?
Yes and no, depending on how you set it up. If you do what I've called the Plamondon model, which is where it's only for your staff and the staff doesn't leave campus, you can actually avoid most of your licensing. But if you're going to set it up as a true childcare where staff is able to leave and then you have to go through licensing. So then you get into it's on the ground level, so you can roll a crib out, but you do have to have an outdoor space and fencing. And so potentially, but I don't know the licensing that good to know, yes.
Yeah.
Knowing who will be sitting at this table at that point in time, I would suggest around 2027 options start being looked at.
Yeah. Definitely.
You can take that bag of sand down to them. Say, here you go.
Here's your sand back.
Well, a lot of things can happen between now and then, but
Well, and I hate to harp too bad on them because the folks that are down there are wonderful people. Jennifer Savage is a wonderful woman and her and I have a great relationship. It's nothing against them, but those higher at B that are in the middle of the state are not very nice in their emails.
discussion for 3 years down the road.
Correct.
Put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
So is there anything
Mhm.
else in the budget trial balance or the capital plan that anyone has a question on or wants to look a little closer at? Otherwise, we do have Zach here.
Only one I had. and
We move
it's- I
for
mean,
adjournment?
it's kind of self-explanatory, but I wanted to ask, what was it? The breath test? Budgeted at 2 and we're at 5,000. Is that just because
Where are we at?
a lot of drunk drivers? Hold on. It just
What
caught my
fund?
eye. Hold on, I gotta find it now.
Speaking of which, can I have a minute?
This might have something to do with the drug court and that stuff. Is that what you're thinking, Rhonda?
Did you see it in there too?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah.
Excuse me.
I don't know if I can go back and find it though. That was under the sheriff's, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't go into the sheriff's.
hold on. I'll find it.
You got younger eyesight.
I'm sorry, it's so small.
Got my eye and now it won't catch my eye again.
I don't see anything.
Okay.
So the only thing that-
101, 334, 638.
That's secondary road.
What'd you say?
250%. I'm sorry, 101, 334.
Oh, preliminary breath test fees.
So I can't speak 100% as to why, but preliminary breath tests are usually ordered by the court. So I think it's one of those, you can budget what you might have had last year. But if he orders that more people, test regularly, there's a fee for people to test regularly.
Oh,
So
that's people coming in.
is it a, is it a?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is zero tolerance bailiff and yeah, the judge
Okay,
would
it just
order.
caught my eye. Thank you.
I mean, these things happen.
Judges are paying the freight.
I'm gonna pull it up specifically just to get the detail. Rash of people.
And how that goes.
Yeah, so this is this is various culmination of things. And just to note that too, that's actually a revenue. So we get reimbursed for that one. So that,
State reimburses it?
Mhm.
Oh, well, there's part of the problem.
so that 250% is actually 250% revenue from budgeted. That's a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
Alright. Well, Zach is here.
That's really good information.
Good. I'm glad.
Right. Good to see you all. I had to take a breathalyzer to get in here, so that might come to a problem.
Costs are going up. Wait till the exit interview.
All right, did everyone complete their assigned task?
I didn't get anything.
He was
I will-
absent that day. Yes, we're good.
It's okay, we'll let you back up.
I trust these folks. Thank you.
I wouldn't go that far.
All right, so just to summarize where we're at in this timeline of getting this update completed. Our plan is to have a draft of the 5 chapter addendums to you 2 months from now. So wherever we're at in the year, June. So in June, we'll have those 5 chapter addendums to you. And we're just going off best practices, information that we're getting behind the scenes from, for example, public safety. One of the people in our department will be reaching out to police, fire, EMS to get their input. Infrastructure, we have data related to that, so we can map out areas that, for instance, have sewer lines instead of septic, water lines, etc. And then again, just using best practices that we've seen in a lot of other counties, putting those into pretty brief but comprehensive documents, chapters, and then we'll bring those all to you so that you'll have a month to review. And if we missed anything, or if there's a grant that you can foresee yourselves all going for, or anything else that you want to make sure is in the plan that's covered so that people are aware of what your intentions are as leadership, let us know in that meantime, and then we'll come back for that 6th meeting and have a final draft of that, along with these goals and objectives, which it may seem tedious that we're going through them in such excruciating detail, but really the goals and objectives, once they're actually laid out and you have action items and responsible parties and timelines set to those, can be really helpful for you in accomplishing what you want to do for the next 5 years. So before I get into the next part of the homework assignment, any questions on where we're at?
Zach, did you get my email?
I did, yep, and I'm
Okay.
going to incorporate, yep.
Okay.
I just
I want to
forgot
make
to,
sure.
forgot to respond, but I did get it, yes.
All
yes.
Because I don't have a copy of that with me.
Oh, do you want one?
Sure, since I did it digitally, believe it or not. Thanks.
I bring a couple extra.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else before we get into it? All right. So we left off on, so what we were trying to do is, for everybody who wasn't here for the last meeting, we're going through a set of the goals and objectives that were found in the last master plan. 68 pretty ambiguous goals and objectives, a lot of them. So whittling those down, hopefully to about 10 to 15 that are more specific, actionable. So part of doing that is figuring out what are your main priorities, what's already been done, or what's no longer relevant. For instance, you probably don't need to regulate horse-drawn carriages anymore, so we can take that off the list. But on page 2, I just wanted to get an idea from all of you of when we go into the water quality all the way down to the tourism, what stuck out to you as something that you think that the county should prioritize or maybe specify in more detail? And then anything that's already been done that you think can be kind of checked off the list for now?
Water quality as one of the primaries.
So there's those 2 objectives under those. Which one were you, both of those you thought were
Well,
Key-
they
key
both
to
work
keeping in there?
hand in hand, but
Yep.
the one on top first.
I agree with Karen, and then I thought the wetlands below, the wetlands, invasive species and sensitive lands. I mean, there's ongoing work there, but that's more handled by Eagle. And that's not really a county objective, in my opinion. I'd be
I
open
feel
to
the
what
same
everybody
way.
else thought.
And the Conservation District does a lot of this stuff too with invasive species.
And you do have your local watershed groups that are involved in this stuff. I mean, this is very important, but I
Yes.
kind of look at them things as being handled.
Yep, me too.
Does the drain commissioner have any responsibilities in any of
I
those?
don't know. Katie?
It seems like they would have some sort of part in that.
I know that Ed's heavily involved in it, but I don't know if
Yeah.
he's involved in his capacity as drain commissioner or
As a
he
citizen.
volunteers for a couple of those different groups.
And I
Yeah,
would think more importantly, our building department, because that's who issues, you know,
Soil erosion.
domain land use or,
Well,
you know, certain.
well, the
permitting
locals-
Based on.
yeah. The locals would do like your land uses and such. But building department is going to be your soil erosion.
Right,
Mhm.
steep slopes.
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Correct.
So,
Can I remind you that your adopted natural hazard mitigation plan does include keeping already adopted. I guess it has to plan on recognizing that the follow.
Oh.
That includes invasive species, bugs and the plants and the other things to keep them in check.
Okay.
As part of our natural hazard mitigation plan, you are addressing it. And
that could
Yeah,
be
and that'll be
ongoing
cited in there for sure.
in that
Yeah.
way.
Yep, it's just, if there's anything that you or anyone working at the county want, like the hazard mitigation plan is going to mention at the state
Correct.
level, the Sigma, they're going to mention the conservation district, but if there's anything that you specifically want to take on in this regard, this would be the time to kind of lay that out and mention it. One of the things that I'll mention in terms of a lot of these, especially the sensitive lands, is, obviously land use is handled at the local level. Ironically enough, a lot of the coastal communities don't know that dune areas or protected dune areas and what's the other one? High water mark areas, basically that it's unwise to build there. That's handled at the local level. And they don't know that aside from those two state statutes, there's nothing preventing people from building next to the water if they want to, especially not knowing that the lake goes in and out every 10 to 20 years. So if there's some kind of education that you would want to provide in that regard, a lot of the local units just aren't aware of it.
Yeah, I would like to offer at this point, we just recently added the Bentley Conservation District to our meeting and I'm in the beginning stages of those meetings, and that's exactly what they're talking about, is some sort of coordinated effort to protect sensitive areas and be water, good stewards of the water. So this is work that's in progress, and I don't know what role the county will be asked to play in that, but it's definitely being discussed at this point, how to get some sort of identified areas where, maybe ordinances or direction or good practices, best practices aren't being utilized. So I'm not sure where that's going to go, but it's being talked about extensively.
Okay, and who's taking the lead in facilitating that? Is it the conservation district?
Conservation
Okay.
District, yeah.
If I'm interpreting your chart correctly, wouldn't you then check the box, the second from the right? You read the title of that, it says using the responsibility chart provided, decide which type of responsibility the county would take on. So that
Yep.
would be, you would identify that.
Yep, and so that's the next part of it.
Oh.
And we could do that for all of them. I didn't think you guys would want to assign responsibility for all 68, most likely. So the first goal here is to identify what are your priorities, and then we'll get into the responsibilities just to save us all some time.
So we said water quality was extremely important.
Yep.
One of the ones we starred. We thought that the wetlands and invasive species would be covered by the hazardous mitigation plan, and we identified the sensitive lands as something that has ongoing work that's being led by the conservation district.
Yep.
Fair enough?
Yes. So one of the things that one of the chapter addendums is infrastructure expansion. Obviously, the expansion of sewer versus septic is pretty critical to water quality.
Yep.
Is there anything that you wanted to mention here in terms of the county's role in that?
We want to be a partner if we have to be, or if we're called to be.
Sewer system should
Yeah.
be infrastructure, which would be county.
Okay.
Which directly relates to our water quality, which is what we're about.
Say that again, what you wrote down. I just want to make sure I understand what you wrote down about infrastructure.
So you want the county to be a partner with the local municipalities in implementing sewer to protect water quality.
So when Benzonia wants to put a sewer down the corridor, the county's ready to step up and be a partner in that. That's what I'm looking for. I don't know if
You're
everybody's
not
on
gonna
board
get a
with that.
nod out of me, I know that.
We all knew that.
Cause I look at this down here in Beulah right now. We've got a super big issue coming down the pike, and finance is the key here. I mean, I'd love to have a sewer system all the way out to Thompsonville. Got the water, we don't have the other. If they could tie it into Crystal Mountain and stuff, but financially, because we're spread all over the place, how do you afford to do that? That's the
Well, I
key.
think the easiest answer is, you know, the county could agree to be the fiduciary for grants. I mean, if the smaller municipalities can't. I think at this time, aren't we just generally saying we would support, to be a partner if,
Yeah, and sort of defining that role that you want to take on, do you want to be the one who is pushing them to get, or do you, whenever they are looking to implement sewer, you're there, like you said, to act as the fiduciary, or are you the one pushing the process along? Like, how do you want
I
that to
think it
look?
should be pushed at the local level and then come here.
I concur.
Today, that's exactly what happens, and quite frankly, I'd be reluctant to suddenly step in and tell folks, what they should be doing,
Right.
because, 2010, we abandoned most of that stuff.
but would that facilitate the smaller entities getting grants if it were in the county's master plan? Is that something that could be helpful, or does it only need to be in their master plans?
I think it would be helpful to have it at the county level, just in case you are acting as the grant administrator. And they possibly, if they're going for a grant, they could point to the county plan. So I think it helps them. I don't think it hurts to have that in there.
Yeah, but
How
this-
did it help us with broadband?
in terms of scoring,
Yeah, as in terms of if the county said we were behind it, I wasn't in on all the broadband, but to make that successful, it seems like it should be a similar process.
that was all done at the county level. But that's quite rare, quite frankly. With respect to infrastructure, if we're going to put some language in there that says that we want to be a partner, I'd want to make it soft.
Mhm.
That's saying, when invited, we would like to
Yeah.
participate.
And in what capacity would you see that as like
I think
Rhonda said?
Rhonda said it already.
Consider supportive roles
Okay.
and
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the hook to be the grant administrator for 10 different townships. So,
Thank you.
but kind of as it comes basis.
Nor do I want to be responsible for hiring engineers and project managers.
Right. So you're gonna have to take it by case.
Or you do it in phases.
Yep. Okay.
Whatever phase one is going to be like, Lake Township or something, for getting broadband through and whatever happens there.
Mhm.
But rolling it out in phases where you're taking it in bites, but infrastructure for sewer is necessary. And
At this
if
part,
it-
in this part of the county.
well, yes, but even, we're not there yet.
Yeah, right.
We're not there yet.
Is Lake Ann something that they even consider,
I doubt it.
especially with all the lakes around there? I mean, it's probably more important up there in some spots. Well, I mean. it's the
Well,
same
I'm
way
just
all over,
saying, we
but-
need to protect our water as much as we possibly
Right.
can, and the sewer, the way we're doing it, doesn't do that.
And I think for the purposes for today, this master plan, we're making very broad statements about things that
And
we're not even sure that are gonna
prioritize.
happen.
Mhm.
We don't want to close doors with this. We want to keep the doors open in case improvements can be made and we can play a role that we all agree we should be playing.
We could say that we could potentially be available for administrative support. So that doesn't mean that we're hands-on managing it. And Gary, to your question about Elmira Township, in 7+ years I've been going to their meeting. I never have heard them talk about doing
Oh,
infrastructure.
But I look at the area and it's all water. And.
So there are some spots, but I mean, there's only a handful of holding tanks in the area, literally.
Really?
There, yes. I mean, you go
Yes,
down
yes.
in our where our front property was, and it's like this from the cottage to the lake. You could have a drain field in your front yard, because water table is 10 to 12 feet. So, I mean, I've seen drain fields with, you know, I mean, you can get away with 4.5 feet. Anything wetter than that, down that deep, then you're gonna get, and above ground.
And all our
Go over to
water
Flat
is
Lake
related.
and take a shovel and you hit water.
Yeah, so you're not-
Right.
There's only a handful of places you're gonna find that up there.
Right.
Well, we're talking about infrastructure, this could
be Right.
natural gas as well,
Right.
right? So.
Right, and that's why I use the one that we at least have some experience with, which is broadband. That's an infrastructure for that too. And I thought, okay, let's kind of linking how we were successful there, or you guys were. And maybe similar approach, but I agree with what you're saying, Rhonda. We're getting the main priorities here in the big picture, kind of. So when I went through this, I picked things that said infrastructure. That meant county to me.
Mhm. Yep.
Other things are pieces.
With infrastructure improvement in Benzie County, my view on it is it's twofold. One is to protect water quality, and the other is growth, economic growth. Those are really the two things I hang my hat on. And Evan, you talked about the 3-mile stretch through here. That's basically about economic opportunities.
Drive through Honor, look where they're gonna put that new dollar store,
Right.
right across from Homestead.
That swimming hole there.
A swimming hole, yeah.
Looks like they filled it in today.
Mhm.
Oh, did they? Oh, they're just some fresh fill on it. It's, I'm sure they're waiting now to be told what they can do, not what they already did.
Before we leave page 2 for my benefit,
Yeah, I was gonna
could
ask,
someone
I was
walk
gonna ask
through
about the
which
bottom.
ones which ones we're prioritizing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm asking the
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry, what?
oh,
I thought you were gonna give me a priority. What?
No, I'm asking, I want to be able to document my file here.
Yeah, so water quality was the county, because that's an infrastructure.
yeah.
And then the rest of them would be addressed in the natural hazard mitigation plan, so we'll reference that. But the only one that's a county specific priority right now are the 2 water quality ones.
And the rest of them you think falls under the hazard mitigation plan?
They will be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like the rest of them were gonna be handled by other agencies outside of the county.
What we don't want to do is duplicate. We already have agency and conservancies that are doing things, as long as there's
Yeah.
that communication there.
Yep.
The next thing on this sheet, I would jump all the way down to tourism, which is economic development as a priority.
So right now you have the Convention and Visitors Bureau that's combined with the Traverse City Tourism Bureau.
Right.
And they have about $1 million a year to spend to promote tourism in our community
In Benzie proper,
in Benzie. That's about how much the 5% is collecting.
okay.
Are you saying that, are you talking about marketing the community when you think of tourism? Or are you thinking of like support of tourism, for instance, public safety?
Support of tourism is what I was thinking. Because that's us, with the sheriff, fire,
EMS?
yeah, EMS, any of that. I don't know that that would go into, rooms, hotels and stuff. I meant supporting the population when it's here.
I also mentioned that one of the addendums that is part of this plan is the identifying public sites and how to best promote them.
Yeah.
That's one of the 5 addendums. One of the things that I had talked with Ed Hookterp about the Recreation Commission, and that was a big part of that document that we put together on the rec director study, was inventorying all of your recreational and cultural spaces, which we've done. So we have those shape files. That would just have to be put into an online mapping platform, which I don't know if you guys would want to host that on your own, or there are organizations that do it. But that would be a really critical way to do exactly what I think this tourism section is getting at, which is people can go on, click on a dot, it says exactly how long that trail is, what
Mm-hmm.
to expect, what amenities are there and how to get there.
We've been working on that. So Ed, I've connected Ed with Gary, who's with Coolago. I'll never know how to say that. And they're working on coming up with how to best do that, because as you know, we do have a much improved GIS platform now for the community. And those are one of the things, including also linking the broadband as well. We're hoping to add those layers onto that mapping software for the
Okay.
community on our website. So that is in the process. It just takes a lot of time to do it, but it is being talked about and discussed and negotiated and those things. So
And that's gonna encompass all the township owned property and all the county owned property. Railroad Point would be on there. Is that was the vision when I sat on Parks and
so
Rec.
I do believe
Yeah.
it's every
Yeah.
public land
It's-
in this county.
Yeah, it's every
Mhm.
recreational space, private or public, I believe, and then
And the
every
community.
agricultural space
Yeah.
too. So I think, is it the aquarium or what is it?
Aquatic
Okay.
The aquatic center?
Yeah.
The aquarium, no. The aquatics is out there. Yeah.
Yeah, so
That
that
was 2
would
years
be an-
ago, so I can.
Yeah, so it'd be an added layer to our mapping that we already have available.
Right.
So you'd be identifying trailheads like for the Park Service.
We have trail shape files if you want them. So you could add that, but these are all point files of sites that Ed wanted us to map out. But we have trail files too, and that we can give those to you as well.
Well, that, quite frankly, it probably represents 50% of our trails in Benzie County.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Park Service,
The idea was when people come visit our area, or even for people who live here, to be able to go someplace and find out what's available. You
Right.
know, is this wheelchair accessible? Is this a swimming opportunity? How far would this hike be? Is it so? And because we have so many beautiful places to draw people to, and people who live here aren't even aware of all of them.
Right.
So when I sat on Parks and Rec, it was a really hefty goal, but really important. It sounds good that they're getting closer to
Mhm.
having that done.
Yeah.
So do you want me to add that idea to this goal and objective chart as a priority to
Feed
get
us back the idea. Let's hear
the
what-
one stop, how do I,
Okay,
the online portal for recreation and cultural sites
I think
open to the
yes.
public?
It'd be an
I think you
easy
already got it.
checkbox.
it says develop and maintain a strong online presence to connect visitors, residents and businesses to community information. Is that too broad?
I think that could also be interpreted as like an events calendar, which I don't know if you guys want to manage that or if you want to leave that to the visitors. I don't know how that's divided right
Chamber
now.
does that.
I think she already has one.
Okay. Chamber does that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was assuming you probably didn't want to get into that, but I think this is a more specific version of that goal, the portal would be.
and are we still picking out our priorities? Cause the other one on the flip page on number 3, I have egg and land.
Yeah.
production.
So are we all set with tourism view sheds? Did ever? anybody?
Yeah, view sheds, we didn't touch on that. What did everybody put about view?
I put a big eye.
You should.
You should, it seems like all the local planning commission, that's one of their priorities.
That's already in
practice. Yeah.
So irrelevant to this body.
Yeah,
Mhm.
keep,
Okay.
yep,
So we're just gonna cross it.
that's what people move up here for, I guess.
View sheds.
Yeah, so page 3.
Egg, land and production, I think is a priority. It's part of our heritage here. It's what people come here for. And it links perfectly with tourism and what brings people here. I mean, we've got Grow Benzie, we've got a lot of different things that are working towards ag entrepreneurism and that's a big draw.
MSU task?
That's what I thought.
I thought that was an MSU task,
Which one?
the
Egg.
egg, land and production.
The mapping?
Extension.
Yeah, all of
MSU
it.
Extension.
Right.
Yeah, I went to them to get a list of farmers recently. And they didn't have the information. What I did was I started looking at my products that I buy locally. And I found the farmer and I went to the farmer. That's how I did it. They didn't have something like that.
Really?
I was shocked. That's where I went.
I think they'd have some kind of list, because they have IPM classes for spraying, they have
Right.
all this other stuff. So
They
they
didn't
have,
have a list to give me,
Well,
so,
they do-
and remember.
maybe they
I-
won't give it to you. I don't.
They do.
Oh, you're a commissioner. we
I
don't
mean,
want to
they
give
do
you a
farm
no.
inspections even, don't they?
MSU does. So some of
We
these,
didn't have a list.
some of these things to me sound like they're responsibility of Chamber of Commerce.
Well, that's what Gare said too.
Yeah, so of these, so we basically got 1, 2, 3, 4 going down to food access categories that relate to food and agriculture. Which of those specifically, and feel free to edit them as you please, did you see as a county priority that you could take on?
What page are you on now?
Still on page
Page
3, going from ag land and production down to food access.
Bob, I do want to make a comment about your observation of the chamber. The chamber's position is much weakened. And
Yeah,
I don't know
I
where
didn't
it's,
want to say that.
yeah, but it's, and I've been a big advocate for them, so I'll say it, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure where they're going. They don't have a physical presence anymore and
All our pamphlets are down here at the trailhead.
Trailhead.
You know, as a farmer myself, not by choice,
it's always the case.
But you're not.
but I really want to help these folks get their products sold and that kind of stuff, and I don't know that's.
Not a county thing though.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a county thing. We can't pick winners and losers, but need to do everything we can to help all these communities and agricultural businesses. So anyway,
Well, you've got the MEDC and MSU Extension that when people want to develop something in agribusiness, they're there to support that and get it off the ground.
And
Mostly,
locally grow bens-
pardon me?
And locally grow bens.
Yeah, Grow Benzies plays a minor role in people that are trying to get off the ground. Usually it's the MEDC.
By the way you're growing.
Pardon me? Yeah, right. I'm not going there. But we have a lot of farm markets around our community. I don't know who encourages that, but is that community by community?
Frankfurt's is, they, you know, and I know Alberta's is.
most of the planning commissions, that is one of their priorities.
Yeah, because it's a big
It's in
draw.
their master plans too, that they're gonna help promote them, but
Well, I
Bob,
don't know if
does
that's
Alberta
county.
or Elmira have a day where they have a farm market?
Farmers market.
Not that I'm aware of.
There's a huge one in Interlochen that
Oh,
multiple people out
yeah.
that way go to.
Just off the corner there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the old
so-
Rick's parking lot
once
there.
again,
And doesn't, Rhonda, doesn't Beulah have them too? And Benzonia has one. A farmer's market.
Benzonia has a barber?
Yeah, well, I've seen the sign for it. I've never gone to it. It's right there by the feed store.
By Tractor Supply?
Yeah,
They put up tents where they have,
Yeah.
the Tractor Supply sells their flowers and stuff. They get
Oh,
a special permit.
I don't
for
know.
tents.
Oh, maybe it's not all the time then. It's not like Frankfurt, Alberta's, which is flooded. I mean, those are such great places. But anyways, I digress.
But
Sorry, Evan.
what I'm interpreting from this conversation is that we acknowledge agriculture's, a key business for
I do
us,
too.
but we've got a couple of different agencies that are doing a better job than we could do.
Stop the duplication.
Well, do you think there's a role to be played by the county to facilitate discussions, bring MEDC and MSU Extension together? Or do you think that's not, just let them act?
Well, we already
Yeah.
fund them to help them do that kind of stuff. We
Right.
contract out to them, basically.
Right, but do you see a need to bring them together on like a, let's say, quarterly basis to report to you and make sure everyone's on the same page, or
Well, they
just throw
report
things
to
out
us.
there?
I don't feel like we get poor communication from them.
Okay, so yeah, like you said, it sounds like a lot of the, you recognize this section as important, but obviously agricultural land protection is a local zoning issue. A lot of it's going to be Chamber of Commerce. Not seeing a clear role for the county here. Am I correct in that?
well, we could once again be facilitators, I guess is how I would look at it. If we are asked to do something, I would see us being on board to help
included
Yeah,
on the
not-
website and.
Definitely don't want to run anything or dictate.
Well, we do. I mean, we appropriate money to the MSU
Right.
Extension. And it's their job to reach out and to provide the data and to
Mhm.
the services and they do.
Okay, so your role, I think that's fine. Just say that the
Okay.
county is a funding source for these efforts.
Ooh,
Well, no, you can't do
Well,
that.
That
But I-
was a no-no.
well, Gary, we've used the word facilitator or convener before. I like the word convener better because it just means we bring groups together and they,
How about the centralized point of information? And you contract that out. Well, facilitator of gathering this information, however you want to put it, what role? I understand what you're doing here. I just want to know how you want me to put it into the plan so that it's palatable.
this isn't gonna help you any, but don't talk specifically about the Chamber of Commerce. Use something broader like those groups, those independent groups involved in economic development or something, or the business or workforce.
Yep.
I don't want to name a particular agency.
Yep.
Because under infrastructure on page 3 up at the top, we start really identifying it specifically. Convene local units of government funders and other partners for discussions on infrastructure to develop or expand, identify opportunities for high-tech communications. Is that something that we should work on as a county to bring in those type of incubators, whether it be
I put ongoing on that because I
Yeah,
feel
it
like
should.
Ongoing.
that's exactly what's happening
Yeah.
with broadband. And
Mhm.
Cherry Capital and Grow Benzie and all these entities came together to accomplish the goal of providing internet for all in Benzie County. I mean, that's
why I have ongoing on mine as well.
okay.
But do you want to keep that as a priority? And just say that it's ongoing, but keep it as a priority as well?
Well,
I think you were infrastructure.
top.
weren't you?
yeah, it's infrastructure, but we're kind of expanding what infrastructure in. Yes, that included like broadband
Yeah.
and does still ongoing. But it might also include, that's what I'm asking, high-tech communications or
Yeah,
ag.
Yeah, this infrastructure section is it's vague.
It's
Yeah,
vague.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
why don't we ignore that one, and then as we
Okay.
see infrastructure going forward, like we had talked about before, with the sewer expansion idea, bring that up.
Okay.
Um,
And infrastructure, did we mention natural gas? That would be us too.
I think it's.
That's
Yeah,
important.
okay,
Do you want me to include, just for my note, I'll include
yeah, I
that.
don't know if you wrote it. It was mentioned, but I don't know if you wrote it.
Most of the townships, that's a priority.
Yep,
But
it
it's
has
hard to
been
get
brought
it
up to me
moving.
too.
I can see us helping assist.
The easements and.
But our name shouldn't be on anything. That's
Well-
up to the natural gas company, their providers, because they're the ones sending out the bill. And they're the ones that are gonna get paid at the end of the month.
DTE came to us when they were trying to do the Thompsonville,
Yep.
Comish area.
Yep.
And, yeah, and that's our role to help promote it.
Exactly. Yep,
Backtrack.
But you will.
but,
But I will.
but.
What were our takeaways on page 1? We kind of flew through page 1. What
Yeah.
started important?
Page 1, were the first two are the affordable housing section, support waterway trail systems and land water infrastructure, and convene stakeholders to develop and maintain trails.
Did air and water?
So the first one under air and water transportation, and the first one under non-motorized trails, and the two affordable housing ones. Because the transit was just Benzie buses doing that, and
You're right there.
Right, some of it is
What do
ongoing.
you want?
Yep.
Oh, I thought you were
Okay.
trying to find it.
I
I didn't
So
know.
I found them.
Okay.
We're on page 3 still then?
yeah, was there anything else on page 3 that you wanted to
Not
put
that
as
I
a
saw.
priority? Or were you good?
With the. This way.
All right, last but not least.
Page 4.
Yeah, was there anything else on page 3 or are we good?
I think we pretty much covered it.
Okay.
I think on the education part, it's like all MSU type stuff, right? The
Yep.
workshops and training and all that.
It's been a long time since we've had any training here. I think, I don't know, maybe not. We used to have community involvement, have MSU do stuff, and I'd like to see us get back.
Do they still do activities up in Mackinac County at the extension there? They provide any
Seems like
don't
they
know.
had a couple of things there,
workshops or?
yeah. What do they call it? The,
Wine making.
I think they were doing maple syrup. We'll
There's
go
plenty
back
of
to
that up there,
but you can add the whiskey to that, so. anyway.
right?
I'm sorry, what?
The wine and the whiskey, Kevin.
So
But yeah,
the education's broken into, I think, 3 distinct roles. One is the hosting the workshops. The other is bringing people together essentially for like an MSU extension to host the workshop. And then the last one is like county staff participating in education themselves. So if you have people who are interested in planning, doing the citizen planner program, if you have someone who's doing like, I don't know if you want the fire department,
For public office, that would be nice if people.
that like onboarding for local government, understanding Robert's Rules of Order, all that kind of stuff. So there's 3 distinct sections there. So if there's any of those that you're interested in prioritizing, I just wanted to point out the distinction between those
I
3.
like that idea for the county.
Have
For if-
training for county.
Yes, because I think a lot of people just don't know. I think with this group, that people are seeing more understanding what a county commissioner does. Because people do all these, our written reports, they go to their meetings, they report wherever they go. And people are starting, at least from what I've experienced, really starting to understand what commissioners.
Yeah, but I don't think
do.
that's our responsibility. We
We're
don't need
trying
to do
to
that.
help.
To
Think
just
that
train the
that's as good as
citizens
to the
what.
Community.
Unless you used to put one on, and a lot of times came after an election year. I went to Gaylord, and it was put on by Michigan State about
Okay.
The new
Your-
commissioner
your
school.
capacity as a county
so the
commissioner.
rules, yeah, but we can do stuff for our own community.
That's what I'm thinking.
Offer it here.
Sure.
All we're doing is giving them a place to have the class.
Yep.
Citizens
Yeah,
planners, one
it would
that
be good education.
I think
Citizens
you-
Planner was easy. I did it online.
I know a lot of them do, but you have a lot of townships that have planning commissions that have no background in that.
Correct.
I'm a
Can
master.
confirm.
You're a man, oh, okay, well, I didn't want to do all that, so like.
So are you saying that I'm trying to understand your role in this though, if you're helping the township planning commissions get connected with education, is that what you're saying? Are you saying for new county employees / elected officials?
I think that's what Karen's talking about.
Okay.
That was more my approach. Thank you, Bob. Because people don't know what a trustee does. They don't know if they should sign up for something like that or try to be elected. I don't know if people will come.
Yeah,
It's kind of civics.
I like that idea to do like a quarterly
Education.
seminar on sunshine laws, Robert's rules,
Yeah.
OMA.
function of local
Yeah.
government. You could have a quarterly series and draw people into it just helps people come together as a community. It gets information out there that's important to
It
everybody.
gets involved.
And I like that. I like the county being in that role.
So,
And then, we'll have Katie teach all the classes.
So Traverse City is now doing an academy for the community and they had their first graduating class, last summer? Oh, you're not aware of it? So the city.
I live near
you-
there.
You should know about it. The city is doing an actual academy, public service academy of some sort. I don't remember the exact name. But essentially you apply to be in this academy and then you go through like a little short course all about city government and Traverse City and what these bonds mean and what this means and how do you run this meeting? And then they get to graduate.
Hey,
Well,
maybe that,
If we didn't have.
I
an
didn't
academy
sign
and
up
we
for this.
started an informational series. Our first informational session should be about Headley. Let's get the community informed. It could be an opportunity to bring people in because this topic is we said there was gonna be an information campaign.
Yep.
And so this could be the catalyst for, okay, what do we want to learn about next? Do we want to talk about blight? How do people handle blight? How do
Yeah.
you, I don't know. I think it's. a good
I
idea.
like the idea for the county on that. Maybe it could be like a Khan Academy. Are you familiar with Khan Academy? Okay. And there's that young man from Michigan that started
Oh, up in.
Liam, who started like a civics class online, and he presented to our state legislatures. And I've shared that information with a lot in my district, and it's out there and available. We don't have to reinvent it, but I think we could be a model as a community getting involvement and educating that way.
I think you're gonna find it's more effective to be a traveling group, because you're gonna have to go to them. We've held lots of meetings here. Now, I've been in this community 25 plus years, and I've been to a lot of group meetings where there were 6 people.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it takes to motivate them. And if I could, I'm gonna break protocol for a moment. Then you come to all of our meetings. You're involved in a couple of committees. What's your feeling about community outreach and providing these kind of meetings?
When they go out to their
Yes.
district, way you subgroup it out there in providing information that you're supposed to be doing with your reports, and that's very helpful. But also, you could have some aspect of education. What is the role of a commissioner? What do we do? How do we handle this? You could also talk about Robert's rules. You could talk about how maybe you would like to organize your area out here. Because that's important. I mean, it's a subset, maybe they're not doing exactly everything the same way, but it has to be forming a similar protocol.
So are you saying do it on an outreach basis or decentralize it?
Oh, I don't think it's an either or. Oh, like with your reports, it's not an either or.
Thank you.
I will say, just attending as many planning commission meetings as I do, that when people come to those meetings and they understand the process for how something gets done, they're much more willing to engage
Right.
in that process later.
To educate.
Even as it starts as a negative way, like, why is the house next to me blighted? Well, this is the process for how blight is remediated. I go, oh, okay. Now I understand the importance of the zoning ordinance or the police power ordinance. Anyways, so I will include that as a priority. And let me relay this back to you so you can tell me if I got it wrong or not. Because it started as a civic onboarding for staff and elected officials, but then it turned into a community civic education course to understand what your roles are and how local government works, county government. Was it both of those or was it the latter?
Well,
I
if
feel
you
like
do
it's
the
just
latter,
more of
then
the
it
latter.
meets everyone.
Forums. I'm not sure about an academy or a course, but informational forums.
Yep.
I think is more appealing because then you can change your topics and make them pertinent to what's going on in our community.
Yep.
I
Okay.
think instead, but what
I
does
agree.
everyone else?
Yeah, no, it sounds great.
Okay.
I agree with you, really.
Anything else on page
For
4?
real. Just say yes, Art.
Yes, Art.
Anything else on page 4 that we thought was a priority?
Oh,
We
I
already
could take
do.
under economic
I
development.
was gonna say the last 2 topics.
I believe that is the county's responsibility. We have an EDC with a very effective board. We just simply don't have good direction. But I think that belongs at the county level,
Yeah, I have those both as ongoing issues that we're doing.
right?
Both of the regional economic development goals?
And future land use patterns.
Aaron, in relationship to that, I know I referred to this several times, but you know, we kicked all of that back to the townships.
Mhm.
How is the county now gonna step in and suggest how those lands are used?
One way that, let's just brainstorm a little bit. I would say we've got, however, 13 townships, what do we have? 13 and then 12. Okay, so we have that many. Townships are from the 1700s, which they were very effective back then. But now what I'm seeing is that, and I asked you to look at this if you could. Where is the duplication and what is the cost with that duplication? So could you have, for instance, the townships, you get the information from the townships, the land use or I'm going to pick zoning. Zoning becomes a county-wide thing. Just listen first.
I didn't say.
I know.
It's coming.
It's a county-wide thing, but the townships get to have input at a committee where they represent, but then at least you have a big piece of how the county is going to be developed and how it would develop and an understanding with that. Conserving, preserving, taking all the things into account, but the former townships have a voice on committee with the county. That's how I see it. Otherwise, I've lived in too many places where it's divided up like this, and this is an archaic way of governing with townships. You could say, let me finish on that, because what happens is everyone does their own thing. You get a lot of people doing the same thing, maybe not doing it well because you don't have the depth of experience many, many times. And what you get is sprawl with no rhyme nor reason. And it's happened so much everywhere I've ever been. And it's sad because we have a jewel here. And just to see it so divided up like that without a plan, you can have input. But population is growing, everything is changing, you've got to. It just makes more sense to me that that is county. And that's how I would see townships being part with voice. But you got to have some oversight.
I don't see any of the townships giving it back.
I know,
Can
I know.
Just because I'm working on the Manistee County Master Plan right now, and they're looking at a single county zoning ordinance. So, and I've done a lot of background on this. So let me just explain. There's 3 different models you can look at. And they all have advantages and disadvantages. So
Right.
Manistee County, they have the Manistee County Planning Department. They take on contracts with the townships. The townships have their own zoning ordinances still. The issue that they've run into, though, and why they're contracted with the county is because they have a hard time finding a zoning administrator. They don't have professional staff that can maintain 40-hour-a-week office hours. And so developers are calling them in that 6-hour gap every week to get they don't have online presence for site plans. So they get a professional staff to help them. And Manistee County, the line is out the door for them getting those contracts right now. So that's what we call the incremental model, because they had 3 contracts initially, and they've slowly gotten townships to go on because they're all seeing the advantage of it while they all maintain their R1, their R2 district.
Send us information on that.
Yeah, I will. I'll send a whole paper that we did last year on it. The other model that it sounds like, Karen, what you're looking at is what Emmett County is doing. They have a county planning department that I believe all the townships and the villages have signed on to. Even though there's one county zoning ordinance, all of the permits go to the individual townships before they're signed off on. Unless it's a permitted by use right, then it's obviously township's already okay with it. But if it's special use, they all go back to the township. The township still has input. The third model is what Wexford County is doing. They've created a joint planning commission, which means the county isn't involved at all. It's, I believe, 12 townships under the Michigan Planning Enabling Act have what's called a joint planning commission. one representative from each of the townships, so it's a 12-member commission. And so they consider all of their land uses as one area that, Wexford County, very rural. So the disadvantage of that one is that, if you've got a more urbanized township, they're not going to want to sign on because the cost just doesn't make sense to them. But those are essentially the three models. So if that's something, it's something that, quite frankly, we advocate for because the townships just don't have the resources. In a lot of sense, it doesn't make sense for them. But they freak out, obviously, because they think we're not going to be able to say what our setbacks are or what our buffer standards are. That's not the case. What gets unified is the administration of that. So you have one person administering all of it. You have a one-stop shop for permitting. And you have one ordinance if you're a developer and you go to one township in Benzie and then you drive a half mile down the road, it's a whole different ordinance.
Right.
That it's just a headache for them, and it can really affect how development goes in. I digress. So yes, I'll provide some information on that. If that's something you're interested in.
I do want to give you this
Yeah.
background if I could. Benzie County had a countywide zoning and planning at one time. And for financial reasons, kicked it back. In the townships, some weren't even ready for it, but they spent a decade trying to figure out how to do it. So that's part of my hesitancy. And Karen, to your point, so I heard what you said about the townships. And by the way, probably the biggest problem townships have is somebody to enforce their ordinances. Because that's been from my
And
conversations.
finding talent.
Okay. But so you say, well, the county might do a better job overseeing it. Well, then why not? The state might do a better job of overseeing it. Where does it end? I'm a firm believer that the decisions are the very best decisions when it's closest to the people that it affects.
I agree with you on that. And that's why I say the county. But what I'm saying, and you did hear me correctly, the way we have it working now, and we're online, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll say it anyways, sun-kissed or things like that happen.
That's gonna happen irregardless.
Irregardless,
Well,
Regardless.
Florida's not supposed to be, regardless.
there you go.
Somebody is gonna always push the limits. And especially in today's day and age, you assume it's better to ask for forgiveness after the fact than it is to deal with it up front. And well, I might disagree, but I'm guaranteeing it's gonna happen again.
No, it will happen, but I'm thinking whatever that learning curve was you went through before.
Yeah.
That's not us. That is not us. And I think we're really stepping it up. I mean, I'm patting us on the backs here, but we are more transparent. We are starting to get people to trust us because we're broadcasting meetings and we're engaging, we're talking about education. We're doing all the things that our public that actually voices to us. We have started doing that, and that is building trust. Maybe before they weren't doing that as much, I don't know. So I don't know about the failure in the last attempt at that, but that doesn't mean it means it wasn't handled well.
Well, again, it was financial reasons in 2010,
Okay.
but I can tell you that I thought that they had weak skill sets
Okay,
in promoting it even prior to that.
okay.
But it's again, it's
I know. It's changed. People don't like change.
maybe a road that we can meet on is that we convene each of the townships so that they're talking together. They do meet, the superintendents meet supposedly at a quarterly, although it doesn't happen all the time with the road commission. I think there's value in seeing that group come together on a regular basis and talk about what's happening in their area, but leave everything to them and we're simply a convener.
Well, all I'm looking at with Zach as our facilitator here, is, you know, kind of planting seeds for thought. It's different. We're different. And I think we're working in the right direction. I jumped ahead maybe even 10 years when I was talking about this because I understand people don't like change. Not everyone's like me. I thrive on change. Most people don't. And they're not going to, they're going to be afraid that they're losing their voice, all their control and everything. What we're actually doing is preserving and planning. If we don't have a plan, we're going to lose what we've got.
I think the townships do have a plan.
Mhm.
They do coordinate somewhat, not completely,
Okay, if you
but
have,
all the master plans go to their neighbors
okay.
and to Manistee County, in my area. So there is some coordinated effort. Everybody has a chance to weigh in.
But we're all part of a
I
county.
do agree that we need to go back to a county planning.
Yeah,
But to take power away from this after the way this came about, 2010 is when the county dropped it. And they dropped it because they could not get support for a millage to pay for it.
okay.
And there was a lot of questionable things at that point in time.
And we've changed from that day, right?
Well, since the townships have taken over, yes, we have changed.
But you,
Jack, let me ask you a question. So
Yeah.
you've looked at this hybrid model where the zoning is handled at the county level, but the township has autonomy and they make these decisions. Was that one model that I heard you
Sure.
say?
Manistee County right now, all the townships have their own zoning ordinances, their own planning commissions. They contract with the county for administration.
It
Yeah.
has administration, it has business hours. Okay, so are they all contributing to the costs of what the county is doing for the administration?
They're all on individual contracts.
Individual contracts, so it's, the county is the hub, they're the spokes, and each township is doing their own thing under the administrative umbrella of the county.
Yes, because what they're running into, and I'll retract, we don't advocate for any county zoning model per se. What we've seen in especially Manistee County and a lot of rural areas, especially as their populations age, they're having a very hard time attracting planning commissioners. They can't maintain five-member planning commissions. They can't find a zoning administrator. They sometimes find it awkward that the zoning administrator lives in that small town and is telling someone that they have to tear their fence down. So a lot of the communities in Manistee County, like I said, it's been incrementally started with like 3 or 4, and now it's, they've got there's like 5 on the wait list to get on. As of right now, they all, like I said, they all maintain their own zoning ordinances. It's just the county that administers them. Now that's becoming a problem for the county because they have 7 different zoning ordinances that they're administering. So they're encouraging them to get them in the same format right now.
Format, but probably different. I mean, Blaine Township is nothing like the city of Frankfurt, Blaine
Right,
Township's
right.
Nothing like Benzonia
So,
or Colfax Township.
yeah,
I mean, it's just
and-
the
and-
diversity of our county.
Yes, and that's what we hear all the time from the townships and totally respect that. With the Manistee County model and even, well,
what
especially
about Emmett?
Emmett's a little different because that's a county-wide single zoning ordinance, but the way that it works is that the county has a good relationship with the townships. And so the townships have a strong influence on, what their land use is. What does your R1 district look like? So the way that it typically looks when the county's administering for all of the townships, is that you'll have like 50 residential districts because one township has 20-foot setbacks and 5-acre minimums, and the other one has quarter-acre minimums. So you've got tons of residential, tons of commercial. It's all just administered by one entity.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The county have the zoning administrator
Yes.
goes out.
Yep.
Those things.
Years to do.
Yep.
And we've got.
Yep.
That's a big issue.
To work.
Most like,
Yeah, it's difficult to get a zoning administrator.
Right.
It's really hard.
More difficult
So,
than
It's
6.
not a job I want to do.
Again, I know that we shouldn't be looking backwards because Karen, I share your passion. I believe in change also. But we talked about the townships participating financially. That was another reason why the county asked the townships to participate. They said can't do, and 30 days later it was gone. But instead of looking backwards, maybe the thought is over a long period of time, and you used a 10-year window for your example, as we begin having a conversation to see what
Correct.
their interest
Some
is.
seeds, that's what I'm talking
And
about.
you know what, if they say, look at thank you, but no thank you, okay. But that, I don't see that as a priority. You know,
Yeah,
I
we,
don't think the townships anticipated the costs it was going to take to do what they're doing now. And could we go wind the clock back with something more central? Perhaps they would be more amenable to kicking in for something that could have one zoning administrator governing all the things.
well,
going on.
and that was the questions that I asked. I mean, I did an email to Zach because I had additional things other than our homework. And
credit.
that's what I said, just look for duplication of effort, depth of talent field, and cost. And, you know, I'm sure, and you came up with these 3 different things, I guess, maybe in response to part of my.
Are you talking about these zoning models?
Yeah.
Oh, this is, yeah.
It's something different.
Well, we did this for
anyways.
MSU.
But I agree
yeah.
with what Art says and where you're leaning, I think, Rhonda. You know, education is key. We're sowing seeds. We're not doing it like we're kicking everyone out of their jobs and their spaces. You're kind of introducing ideas
I think
and
we need to start the conversation again.
start the
So
conversation.
I'll just say, just to keep it in your mind. So right now for the Manistee County Master Plan, that's exactly what we're doing. A large part of that plan is that we are meeting with every village and every township. And we're just presenting on what is, and we're calling it a single collaborative permitting model. Because when you say county zoning, they think that they're losing their zoning, and they're not. So it's a collaborative permitting model. It's permitting that's the big issue here. And we're meeting with each one of them, explaining what that looks like, what that would look like for them, and then getting a 1 through 5 score of how interested they are. 1, don't talk to us again. 3, I'm interested, but give me a little more information. 5, we're already trying to sign up for it.
Okay.
And so what we're going to deliver to Manistee County is a list of every single municipality and where they're at in that conversation. So that, because in the next 5 years, they're working towards that single county model that Emmett County has.
So you've done extensive work on this. Do you feel like if we asked for a presentation of the information that you've put together, do you feel like that's something that we could do at a
Oh,
study
yeah.
session? And I mean, with the chair's permission and perhaps administration on board, I would like to learn about this to see what the
Yeah.
models are out there.
So-
and what our options are.
So like I said,
We're getting way ahead of ourselves, right? Saying we're gonna change all this. I mean, we got so much ahead of us with Headley and trying to talk to the community about that. Now we're gonna start going and saying, hey, we want to think about changing the way everybody's done zoning for the last 10 years and I think we're way ahead of ourselves trying to, you know.
Well, of one of our priorities
I,
in the master plan.
I do agree with Evan. I think it can hit the master plan. It's lower priority, because in addition to what you've talked about, now we've got NMC out there. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna hit us in the next 12 months.
yeah, and what we're talking, this doesn't happen overnight, obviously. But what I can do is I'll send you a paper. Rob Carson, who's our regional director, and I, we did a paper through MSU. We looked at those 3 miles that I just mentioned. We interviewed the people who work for those planning commissions, people who are professional or who are hired staff in those counties, as well as developers in each of those counties, to get their perspective on each of the models, and then summarize that information. And then you'll get an explanation of what all those look like. So it's just
Thank
food
you.
for thought.
Thank
Nothing you have to
Yeah.
do.
Educate.
All I ask is if you're gonna document something in our plan along that line, is use very soft
Oh,
language.
Yep. I understand that, this is just a preliminary thought. Keep it open.
Very
but
general.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to summarize what we identify as the priorities for the next meeting. I'll figure out how I want to do that. I might send you an email. Might have homework.
Evan,
But
I didn't do it.
I'll make I'll use carbon paper and give you for
But-
yours, Gary.
I think what I'm going to do is take what you talked about with the ARPA funds, because there was some prioritization there with some ideas, take what we have here, condense that list. Put some action items that we think might be helpful, tell me I'm totally wrong, tell me, say this is good. And then we'll get into the responsibility chart and timeline for each of these, and then we'll be good.
Awesome.
All right. Oh, sorry, last thing. I'm not the manager for this project, even though I'm here. But the contract runs out May 1st for some reason. So I have a contract extension. Do you want? It just goes till August.
Yes, Bob needs to sign it.
Okay. Just wanted that on your in
Hey,
front of you.
Zach, that was fun.
It always is. It always is.
Zach, I would be curious, and I know we want to wrap up. And I want you to be as candid as you're comfortable. But how is our process unfolding compared to other ones that you've done?
Well, you guys are different because you're not doing a full master plan. Right,
We
it's
can-
just 5 addendums and a data update. So as far as, I don't usually do it this way, but
So you're saying it's great.
great.
So we're perfect plan,
Yeah.
and we decided it's just a freshening, a fluffing, if you will.
Right.
Right now, because of the whole ARPA situation, that's what he's referring to, put our ARPA updates in there.
Yep.
Hone down on the goals for the master plan, so, and then in another 5 years, that's when we'll really relook at the whole thing.
Yeah, and you
I like
guys
the
have a
fluffing.
robust plan with a lot of good information. There really wasn't a need for a full rewrite. So.
Oh, I thought you were handing me
All right,
something.
thanks, guys.
Thanks, Zach. I like the fluffing.
No.
Just enough to be in compliance for grants.
Yes, so we're all ready to public comment, huh?
Yes, open the final public input. Yes, sir.
Oh,
I move for adjournment.
Do we, you said, do we want public input or do we?
Gotta go.
Thanks, Zach.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
I've been around this country a lot and living in a lot of areas, much like Karen has too. I want to call attention to a few things. First off, your role as commissioners. Yes, you're dealing with the everyday functions of your local government. No doubt about it. That's very important. You can't avoid that. Part of your role is not to proceed backwards in time and keep things stationary as things advance. Impossible. You don't want to do that. So part of what you need, even though you may not be sitting at these desks, what you are also doing, hopefully, is setting the role for how this government is going to look down the line. Maybe 5 years, it may be 10 years, it may be 15 years. Right now, in some respects, you're dealing with a very dysfunctional county overall because you got all the little fiefdoms around who operate, who don't have the abilities in a lot of cases to operate where they need to be. So you have to identify which things the county has a better way of doing things than a local village, township, whatever it happens to be. When it comes to major infrastructure, broadband, you've taken that on. Yes, you're pardoning, but you've taken that on. And you've got a plan on how that's going to operate. It's likewise when you're dealing with water conservation, water purity, and how we're going to operate that, you need to, in the long run, not in a few years, in the long run, you need to figure out what's going to happen in this county to make all that safe. And there's no way that you're going to get around that by saying we cannot have and will have some sort of a sewer water line system throughout the whole county. That has to be addressed. It won't be a short-term address. It has to be addressed. Whether the individual villages are in charge of that, that should not be a local village or township or Frankfurt City decision. That has to be a county county-wide decision because that's a planned project. Nobody has the resources locally to be able to do that. That has to be. And there's lots of ways to handle that economically. Number three, when you're talking about the overall with planning commissions. I've used up my time.
You can take my 3 minutes.
I can take your 3 minutes. Thank you. Gary. When you're talking about planning and having the ability to control how permits are going to be used, how this is going to be used, again, that shouldn't be a local project. That's a county-wide, because you want uniformity in that area. Because it makes it very, very difficult to not only enforce, but also to operate and to be all the same playing field. It will make life so much better for all residents in that area. It's just something to think about. You cannot think just what's happening today and we're comfortable where we are today. That's not what it's about. Your job here also is to plan what's going to happen in the future, whether you're here or not. You've got to put those steps into action. So, end of my piece.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good comments.
Close public input.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Aye.